Hi, and welcome to the Mouthwash Talk Show, a minty fresh take on politics. And you're probably wondering, why the heck didn't you play the countdown tonight? I'm like, I pushed the wrong button. I just totally pushed the wrong button. So, hey, we're going to get going here a little earlier than usual because usually that countdown takes a couple minutes. So, yeah, sorry about that. You know, when you're the engineer and the host, sometimes things get missed. And so I apologize for that. You'll have to catch the countdown next time. But hey, we got a little bit of interesting news. For those that watch us on channel 40 at 9:30 on Mondays, the following Monday. So this show tonight that's live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter will be edited down to 30 minutes and we'll go on to channel 40. And usually that is 9:30 on Mondays. But we are going to be moving to 11 p.m. on channel 40 on the same Mondays. And we're going to call it the WHMB News, you know, where you want to get unbiased, you know, fair and balanced and centralized and all that opinions. You're going to be able to catch it on the show there. So we're going to move our time, and that'll start 7:10. That'll be July 10th. That's when that'll start. But in the meantime, we have a good show on the lineup tonight. We have Pastor John Schrock coming on, and he knows a little bit about the John Birch Society. And, you know, until I met John, I didn't even know what the John Birch Society was. So I talked to him about a month and a half or so ago. He said, hey, I want to come on the show. We'll talk about that. And he is a pastor. So we're going to talk about religion and politics. And it might shut down the internet, but we can do it. We're going to try it. But I want to tell you a preview for next week. I'm excited about this one. This is, I don't know if you remember, about a year ago, there was a auto accident in Indianapolis. And when the two people that were in the accident went to exchange their information, one of the guys almost beat the other guy to death. It made some headlines. There was, you know, it talked about that. The only thing that saved this guy was an onlooker came out and sort of saved him. Well, guess what? After a year, the person who did that really hasn't had anything done. So this gentleman, he's going to come on. I'm going to do an interview with him, and then we're going to get ready for this. We're going to get Johnson County Prosecutor Lance Hammer. He's going to come on the show next week. And then this is an added thing. Now, as you know, next Tuesday is the 4th of July, and I live in Mars Hill. We're going to have so many fireworks going on out here. I won't even be able to do the show from my studio. It'll be so loud you won't do it. So we're going to do it at Wednesday at 9 o'clock. Wednesday, 9 o'clock. July 5th. So we want you to tune in for that. We're going to call it a special edition, because I am excited because, you know, it's Johnson County Prosecutor Lance Hammer. Isn't that a cool name, Lance Hammer? That's a pretty cool name. And he's the prosecutor down there. He's no nonsense guy. So don't be causing no trouble down in Johnson County. But he's going to give us his take on why there wasn't anything done about this issue with this gentleman. And we're going to hear his side of the story and find out what happened. And then we're going to dig into it a little bit. So without any more announcements, I know that's usually longer than I talk. I apologize for that because you didn't get on here to hear me. You want to hear our fabulous guests, our wonderful panel, and then, of course, the conspiracy theory at the end is always excellent. So without any more talk, I'm going to go ahead and bring on our guest, John. Let's see if I can get him on here. I'm going to put you on the big screen. There we go. Oh, yeah.
The big screen.
Two beautiful things right there coming on. So I won't speak for you, but, you know, all that. So you're on the big screen. Mr. Schrock, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing fantastic, John. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yes. What do you want to talk about first? John Birch, how you're involved with that, or you want to talk about your pastor? Which one? I'll give you a choice.
Well, we can talk about either one. Which one do you think would be a bigger tease? We have to have a cliffhanger in order to go to commercial.
Yeah, commercial. We do need some sponsors, by the way. It's we're always out there begging for some money to keep this, shoestring budget going. I'd like to pay my people someday. It'd be nice to say, "Hey, John, I got your check for coming on the show." We don't have any of that. So let's go with a little personal stuff here. Let's talk about you, kids, wife, job, pastor. Let's do that.
Oh yeah, I'm happily married to the love of my wife, Elizabeth. We have 10 kids. We live in West Central Indiana. It's just wonderful being back in Indiana. I was in the United States Marine Corps, honorably discharged as a corporal back in 2004. So I love being back in Indiana and being able to enjoy the sweet corn and enjoy. I still remember as a kid there was the song Indiana Beach. There's more than corn in Indiana. There's Indiana Beach.
Yeah, my family's from Monticello, so that I mean my dad's side, yeah, they were up there. So yeah, I've been to Indiana Beach, Lake Freeman, and all that good
Mhm.
stuff. Horseshoe Bend. Half my family's buried up there at the Riverside Cemetery. I go visit them every once in a while. All right, so and you're a pastor. How long have you been a pastor?
I was ordained into the ministry back in late 2008, 2009 time frame. Pastored in North Carolina, and then we started a church in Washington State. My wife and I did. Hope there in Airway Heights, Washington, right outside of Fairchild Air Force Base. Really ministered to the military there at Fairchild. It's such a needy mission field. Our men and women in uniform, they're so brave, they're so bold in what they are doing, and being able to share the love of Christ with them was just fantastic.
Yeah, you know what they say. There's no atheist in a foxhole. So uh, now you're pastoring here in Indiana. Is that correct?
I'm not currently actively
Okay.
in the pastorate right now. I serve as the regional field director for the John Birch Society, and so I'm excited to do that. I still get
Well,
the
that's a
opportunity to minister, though.
yeah, that is a good segue to the next topic. Is now, John Birch. How did you get involved with that? Give us the elevator speech about the John Birch, and then how you got involved with that.
So I was introduced to the Birch Society in 2018. I had never heard of it myself, even though I was born and raised in Indiana. We were started in Indianapolis. We want to bring about less government, more responsibility, and with God's help, a better world. We're actively involved in all levels of politics, inside the state house, inside activating the electorate so that they can be educated about what's going on. We offer state legislators scorecards so they can educate others. They can talk to their state legislators about what's happening inside the state house. It's kind of interesting when you watch what their marketing is from the legislators during campaign time, and then what their votes actually are. Sometimes there's a problem between the two, and there's a conundrum. And we encourage people to look at how they voted. That really tells you what they're planning on doing.
Yeah, that sometimes they do the old shuffle the cards a little bit for you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get the panel on here. So let me. I'm telling you what, we're gonna play small talk. I'm getting a little bit of a lag here, so we're gonna play Mark Small talk, and he doesn't seem to be a big fan of the John Birch Society. So let's go ahead and play him, and then we'll bring the panel on the other side, and then you're gonna be on the hot seat.
Hi, Mark Small. This is Small Talk. There are things about the John Birch Society a lot of people don't know. John Birch Society was started here in Indiana and in the late 1950s. And during the 1960s especially, it was the butt of a lot of jokes, and deservedly so. They found communist conspiracies in everything. They described Dwight David Eisenhower as being a communist. They also were really very much opposed to Brown versus Board of Education 1. Now, ended segregation, supposedly racial segregation. Then began the 1960s in earnest, when the United States really started to approach greatness. That was a time during which Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act were enacted. Richard Nixon was proud of some of the achievements on integration, and especially on public education. He was also very proud of some of the things that were done by the government in the environment, area of the environment, especially the EPA. Oh, that's big government overreach today. Look at the air outside today. We're getting a lot of fires in Canada coming down here. A lot of the problems with our environment are a source of our being just so wedded to fossil fuels. And yeah, climate change really is a lot of it is caused by us. Now, if we really want to look at when we were approaching greatness, we really were making futile attempts in other areas. John gives me a rough time for always going to Vietnam War. But you know, when the Hotel Metropole was reopened about 10 years ago, there were limousines pulled up outside. If the South had won, there would have been the same limousines, just probably different people. So what we need to do is relegate groups like the John Birch Society back to what they were, jokes like the Joe Pine Show on Channel 4. Mark Small, small talk, peace, love, happiness.
I told you he's going to light it up. We got the wrong person out here in the middle. I wish I could figure this StreamYard out someday. I may get it at some point. But let me get everybody joggled around here where they're supposed to be. Not there, not there. Lucy, I got news for you on this one. John Schrock's got 10 kids too. So I don't know. This John Birch thing sounds an awful lot like, I joked with him before the show started, it should be the Lucy Brenton Society, because they want to eliminate the Fed and smaller government and 10 kids. I mean, that must be a prerequisite. Is that
I grew up with love in my heart for the John Birch Society. One of my favorite leaders at church was a John Birch. There you
go. First things first. How is your dad doing? He's the person that had surgery. Correct?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, he's doing like really well. Dad's 88. He's a senior Olympian. So he's gotten gold and silver medals in badminton, even in his late 70s and early 80s. And I'm telling you, it has inspired me to just get out and walk every day. I'm getting ready to do 75 hard. So, the secret to all of this is movement. He lives alone and at 88 and a half. So, kudos to Dad.
Yeah, when you get 88, you start counting those halves. Speaking of forgetfulness, let's go to Miss Tiffany. I think you forgot to do the show last week. How do you forget us? I cried for like 3 seconds. That was terrible.
So in Fishers last Tuesday, we had our first free concert, and the county party did a snow cone booth. So we're doing snow cones, shaved ice, talking to residents, talking to kids, and it went a little late. And when I got home, all I wanted to do after talking to 400 people was like sit on the couch, and it just passed.
I know what happened. It was all that you were all hopped up on sugar and you had brain freeze. That's okay.
Yeah.
You can.
And in my defense, Monday was a holiday, so Tuesday felt like Monday.
We'll let you slide. But me and Jordan held down the fort. Jordan, didn't we have fun? I mean, I actually got to ask questions because you guys didn't hog the whole show. I got to ask some questions last week. We had a good time.
It was a good show. It was awesome. It was cool. We were just hanging out with Micah.
Just hanging out with Micah, our buddy Micah. He's in the car, and we got a couple people worried about him driving and talking. I mean, if you know Micah Beckwith, he talks when he sleeps. I mean, he's always talking. He can't not have that. So, but anyway, we have John Schrock here. You could ask him pastor questions, and Tiffany, you could ask him. You guys could play Army together or whatever the heck veterans do, and you could talk about those things. And 10 kids. He's got so much in common with the panel tonight. I don't know if an hour is going to be enough. So let's go ahead. I'm going to start with Lucky Lucy because she was not here last week and she's got 10 kids. So you can, and you two are already kindred spirits. So go ahead, Lucy. I think this is somebody you will not give a hard time to tonight.
Yeah. Well, Mark Small always plays the foil. So, and he and I tend to disagree a lot. So, John, I'm sure that you get a lot of criticism about your work with the John Birch Society. What's the thing that is like the most common objection or misconception that people have about you and the John Birch Society, and what do you tell them about it?
Oh, we constantly hear all sorts of rhetoric that comes out there. You never know what somebody's going to come up with. I've learned that I was at a place that I wasn't at. I learned that I wasn't at a place that I was. People enjoy talking big and pontificating, and then not backing it up with fact. We've heard, I'm sure, every viewer has probably heard the slight against the John Birch Society that we're a racist organization because we stand up for rights for everybody. We fight for the preborn. We fight for everybody so that they can have equal rights. It holds no water, but the argument is out there. But what I have found is those that are doing the most are also the most maligned. When you're active in being true to the Constitution, true to the Word of God, you're going to take flack.
Yeah. Well, if you're not leading, you're not doing it right.
Yeah. If you're not leading, you're not going to have any arrows in your back, right? So that's just evidence of your good work.
Yeah. So Tiffany, now that you've joined us back on the show, do you know anything about John? Have you heard about John Birch before I even mentioned it? It's okay. I didn't know either till I met John. I had no idea that this John Birch thing was even. I thought it was a tree.
So I loved you talking about ministering to people in the military. I was in the military, and I've been up to Fairchild. It's a nice base in Spokane, so that's very interesting. So how did you get involved with the Birch Society? Did I miss that?
So I was introduced when I was out in Washington to the Birch Society. I was talking to a person that had my position that I have now, a similar position. They were on the West Coast. I'm in Indiana, but we were chatting, and I kind of, I knew that he was taking me out to dinner in order to recruit me, if you will, to sign up for being a member. And I said, I'm looking. I don't like organizations that don't get anything done. I've publicly spoken at a lot of events. People like for me to come and speak, to be able to encourage people to get involved in their community and their government. And so I told him, I'm looking for an organization that will get us out of the UN, an organization that will stop the federalization of police, an organization that doesn't like the Federal Reserve, that understands that it's anything but federal and it's anything but a bank. I'm looking for a place that doesn't want a constitutional convention. And he gets this big smile on his face, and he says, have you researched us? And I said, I just know the name of it. And he showed me the website. You can go to jbs.org. You can see the same website that I saw. And I said, this is an organization that's getting stuff done. Then I started reading our back literature. We've been talking about the problems that we are facing here today. We've been talking about election integrity since 1976. We're the original election integrity group in the nation, talking about the fact that we have problems in our voting. You could drive Mack trucks through some of these laws that they have on the books inside of the states of Indiana.
Yeah, we have a few groups that if they would all get together, maybe some different things would happen. And so Jordan, what I see you're taking notes there, working on something else. I don't know, but
no, taking notes.
What do you have to? What do you got on your mind here?
Well, JBS is a really interesting company. It's been around, organization, I'd say. It's been around for a while, and it seems to have had its opinions and also has authored some movements throughout American history and politics. I'm more interested in their anti-communist part, also with the civil rights movement, not so much against what the mainstream media says about it, where they were opposition against it, but more of the lines of why they would think that it was it was being influenced by communism. And so I'm really interested to see what kind of gave birth to some type of ideological beliefs of that nature, but also too knowing that far-right conservative groups throughout the country for decades have been a part of JBS, but it seems to be in their history, there kind of have been a moment where even some conservatives kind of saw different viewpoints from you. So I guess to answer all of my cumulative questions that I'll have tonight for you, I'll start off with, compared to your organization and the Heritage Foundation, we know the history of the Heritage Foundation and what they do and for Americans. How would you say you guys are compared to them with your grassroots movements, and also too with how you guys activate your grassroots movements as well?
So educating people is of utmost importance. I always use 3 E's when I talk to people. I talk about education. If you don't know what a problem is, how in the world are you going to know how to respond to it? So education is paramount. I remember when I was a volunteer firefighter over in Illinois, I finally got my pager and I was so excited. I put it on the right side, and my right side was just a little bit lighter. It's like when a young lady gets a ring from her the young man that wants to marry her, her hand, somehow floats just a little bit easier. And I didn't listen to the pager when it went off. I got so excited the first time that it went off, and I didn't know how to respond. And I had to go and eat my pride and ask the next firefighter that got to the fire station, what was the page about? Are we going to a fire? Are we going to a wreck? Are we going to what? And so I needed educated. Where was I headed? We have to educate people about the problem. And that's what we do at the Birch Society. We identify the problem. But then educated people are naturally empowered people. If you know what the problem is, you are then empowered in order to go about and fixing the problem. And once that they are educated and empowered, they will naturally become engaged. They know what the problem is. They feel empowered because they've identified the problem. And then thirdly, they are an engaged people. You mentioned about far right organizations. I think it's kind of a misnomer to many times that we use the term far right, far left in it. Many would say the John Birch Society is a far right organization. Well, it depends on how you have a scale of that, because actually on the far right, you would have anarchy, and that would not be something that we would be pushing forward is anarchy. That's on the far right. What we would be pushing for is a limited government. And there are many that would, and I'm not putting this on you, but there are many that would malign people that are looking for a limited government. They want an expanded government. And that's what we find in a totalitarian move.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, that's that education. We seem to hit on that. I think the Mouthwash show is becoming an educational show. We want to get down in the weeds and educate people, but at times when our viewers have a good question, I like to put it up there. So this is from Adam Harvey. He's not only a viewer, but he's one of the show consultants at the Indiana level. What has JBS focused on in the last year? What's been your projects?
Well, we've been involved in election integrity, getting understanding what's happening in Indiana. What are loopholes inside of the state law? We talked about earlier. Lucy brought up about how people malign us. Many people tried to say that we were just trying to bring Trump back into office. We got ticked off because Trump didn't get in office. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring about election integrity, honesty, that your vote counts. If you voted for Mickey Mouse in the election, then your vote for Mickey Mouse should count. If you voted for Donald Duck in the maybe I shouldn't use Donald Duck. I'm not trying to refer to somebody in that. But if you voted for another Daffy Duck, let's use Daffy Duck. If you voted for Daffy Duck, then your vote for Daffy Duck should count. You shouldn't have fractionalized voting. My vote should not count for 1.5 and somebody's for 0.5. It should be one person, one vote. That's what our Constitution states. So we've been working on election integrity. We've also been working in educating people about what's happening in the schools. It is a 5-alarm dumpster fire, what is happening inside of our schools. We have hypersexualization of children. We are teaching children that critical race theory is a good thing. We are creating a divide. We are saying that there are those that are born oppressed. There are those that are born oppressors. And that's not what truly that it is. We all aren't born an oppressor because of a skin color. We are born children of God, and we need to understand that. So we've been working on educating people on that, activating the grassroots in order to get down to the State House. One of the times I remember, John, I saw you there. We're holding a State House event, getting people down to the State House, and we had over 100 people there talking to their legislators about hypersexualization of children, pornographies in school, pornography in libraries, in order to be able to get the bill moved out of the Senate.
And we've done a little bit. We've made a little bit of movement there, but it's not 100% at all. But it is movement. So that is interesting. Yeah, I did see that. That was when Jacques Boyens was down there talking about sex trafficking. We do have the Sound of Freedom movie coming out with Jim Caviezel. I think sounds like it's going to make an impact and maybe get some of this stuff out to the forefront, but it's definitely a issue that folks don't really want to talk about. So Lucy, I know you got some more questions. I want to hear it because you could be considered far right with your anarchist theory. I mean, maybe you won't fit into this John Birch Society. Birch Society. Exactly. You're not going to be a perfect fit. So
well, first of all, let's talk about what is anarchy. An meaning without, arch meaning a ruler. Anarchy is simply, for me, not believing that I believe that that I'm my own sovereign individual, that no one rules over me. The only person that I believe has any authority over my life is Almighty God, my creator, and the rest of y'all can go take a long walk off a short pier.
Even me?
Yes, even you, and especially the government. So you talk about anarchy, and a lot of people think that anarchy means chaos, and it doesn't. It simply means without a ruler. There are many sane people that can live in community or by themselves without a ruler over them. I mean, I don't go out and murder people, and it's not because there's a law that says you can't murder people. It's because I'm a reasonably sane individual, and I'm not going to go murder people. So, John, when you say, these far right people that are anarchists, I mean, I guess you could, I'm a very conservative libertarian. I've got 10 kids. I've been married for 32 years. So, I look at the anarchy not from that lens of being right or left. The leftist anarchists are the communo anarchists. And their reason for anarchy is they want to tear stuff up so they can take your stuff. Right? That's why they don't want any rulers, because they want to take your stuff. So, so John, so my question for you is on that spectrum, there seems to be a lot of, Venn diagram overlap between libertarians and the JBS. So when you look at traditional libertarian beliefs versus JBS, where do you see the divergence?
I'm not strongly familiar with all of the libertarian beliefs. I don't have those memorized, so I wouldn't be able to speak clearly on that. You do bring up a good point of anarchy and without anarchy, without a ruler. But there is the Bible says that we're supposed to. And here comes my pastor hat out, so I'll trade my hat out. We'll get the tinfoil hat out here in a little bit for conspiracy time. The pastor hat, the government is responsible for putting people to death in a capital punishment situation. That's a limited government. That's a very slender vein that the government has an authority.
So I'm going to stop you right there, because a lot of my friends that are Christians will come up and they'll say, rend under Caesar. I say, well, Caesar is dead. And then they'll say, well, God appoints governments. And I said, well, read the Old Testament. You'll find that he appointed governments to punish you because you were stupid and asked for those governments. And then when you look at, what you were just talking about, capital punishment, one of the base theories of libertarian philosophy is that if you don't have the right to do something, you cannot delegate that right to do something to somebody else. So when I say taxation is theft, I literally mean that people in the community cannot agree together to take money out of my paycheck. So I can't go into your home, into your bedroom, take your wallet, take 40%. And I also can't give that right, to some dude that everybody else elected, right? Similarly, I don't have the right to kill anybody. So I can't delegate that right that I don't have to a government. And so as a libertarian, I've got to let you know that I do not agree with capital punishment. Now, are there lots of people that I think should be put to death? Well, yeah, personally, I think there's some, pedophiles that, I wish that, the dad or mom would catch them in the act and shoot them and take them out of this world. That would be freaking amazing. And I would contribute to their GoFundMes all day long. But the fact of the matter is I don't personally have the right. Let me organize those, but I'm not about vigilante posses either. There is justice, there is rule of law. That does not contradict anarchy at all. Anarchy simply means that that I don't have somebody that rules over me. And as long as I'm not hurting people or taking their stuff, then there is no reason that anybody should mess with me. But that's where I come down in capital punishment, just so you know. So it sounds like the John Birch Society or you personally believe that it's okay for the government to decide who lives and who dies. So let's back up a step and ask, how do we know that that person is actually guilty of the crime for which they're going to be killed, and that we don't have a situation that the Innocence Project would come in and try and, demonstrate years later? Because the Innocence Project has shown so many people that were the victims of prosecutorial activism, because they know that prosecutor, he's going to want to run for mayor later, like Goldsmith did. And so he's going to put people in jail. He wants to have those convictions. So I don't think the government should have that power to put people to death.
Can I add something to that real quick? I think you're 100% right. So if it's not about it, why not we exile them? Like, wouldn't that be the most healthy thing, is to exile
to
people?
Australia?
Well, no.
To Australia like English. They did. Listen,
British
you've made a mistake. You must go to Australia.
It worked, but
then we'll
truly,
take
like
your
some
gun.
type of social exiling. If we consider these folks a pariah that much to where we want to take their lives, but we can't, then there needs to be some way that we can still, preserve their life because their life is important too, but as well, they have no right to participate in our society. We have no place for it.
It's an interesting thing, and there's a libertarian concept called restorative justice. You'll notice that often there are victimless crimes in the government. The CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, is it Consumer Protection? Yeah, SCFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That was something that was created by Congress to go after ne'er-do-wells like Wells Fargo, when they were opening up accounts and people didn't even know they had accounts open. Obviously, that kind of behavior should be punished, but Congress didn't even fund the CFPB. So the CFPB has to go out and find these violations and create the fines and then collect on those fines and fund themselves. So you create a situation where, they literally die and don't on the vine and don't have salaries unless you fund that. So and of course, when those fines happen, do the consumers get restored and made whole? No, but the money goes to the government and the people that are collecting those fines. That, to me, that's a real problem. So Mary Ruwart, who's a PhD and a libertarian who ran for, I think she was running for vice president when Harry Brown ran for president back in about 96 or 92. My libertarian history is slipping. Anyway, she has some really great books, and one of them talks about restorative justice. So to speak to whether or not we should exile them, no, obviously we shouldn't, because if we exile them, then there's the chance that they could escape and they could harm somebody else. You put a whole bunch of smart psychopaths on an island, they're going to figure out how to get off, right? And then they're going to come and harm people again.
Now that you mentioned that, Rhonda Miller says, I hear Epstein Island is now available. And then I don't know if you've seen Escape from LA or whatever. Snake Plissken would probably run Epstein Island.
Yeah. And he's a libertarian in real life too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. He won't talk about it. He's a really private person. But anyway, the point is that we have a duty, if there is somebody that is doing harm as a third party, to stop that person and defend it. So if my gun is available when somebody is trying to rob you or rape you or murder you, then my gun will be in service to you as a third party if I'm going to do it. So
you speak that you don't have an authority to put someone to death, but then you offer your weapon. How do you connect those two?
Oh, that's a great question. We are commanded not to murder. We are not commanded not to kill. And if someone is threatening your life or my life, and you're right in front of me, and it's clear that somebody's about to chop you in the head with a machete, I'm going to take them out.
And if they do, then we can also put them to death afterwards, after we do a probable cause investigation, and we can take them before a court of law, and we can make them a crispy critter.
Well, in Indiana. Yeah, in Indiana.
Sounds like a philosopher's dilemma.
But one of the things that Mary Ruwart talks about is the idea of restorative justice being private prisons or prisons could actually compete for prisoners and put them to work. And those people could pay for their own incarceration and pay for the restoration of the person that they stole. I mean, the whole point of putting somebody in jail if they stole $1,000 is to get the $1,000 back to the person that was stolen from, not to create a $50,000 or $80,000 a year taxpayer funded 3 hots and a cot, right? So let's get that person, let's make that person pay them back. We probably need punitive damages of triple damages, and let's get them restored. And then let's actually rehabilitate those people instead of making them better criminals while they sit in jail. But anyway, that wasn't my thoughts. That's Mary Ruwart.
Well, but what you're talking about there is it says in the Bible, let him who stole steal no more, but rather let him labor, working with his hands the things which is good. So if he went and stole $1,000, he needs to work it off with his hands, the same hands that stole the $1,000. He needs to work off in order to be able to repay that back. That's a biblical concept.
I agree. And, as somebody that grew up I actually grew up Mormon, and that's why I have 10 kids, because I was taught that my worth as a human female was in how many bodies I produced, for these Mormon kids coming down. They gotta have an avatar.
You're on the all-star list.
Oh yeah. That part of the conditioning and the brainwashing didn't go away, and I'm glad. I left the Mormon church when I was a teenager. But I want to point out that not everything biblical, or not everything that is reported to be biblical, is something that I'm going to support. For example, I believe that we were all born and created by our Creator to be sovereign individuals and not the slave of another. That's why I don't like the Federal Reserve. It creates us as economic slaves. But here's the problem. In the Bible, I hear us being admonished that we're a slave and that we're to serve our masters just like we're serving Jesus. And I am sorry, but I don't really believe that Jesus would say, you know what, Lucy, you're doing a great job being a slave for the Federal Reserve. Keep it up. I see you. You're doing great, girl.
There's no. I think the original question was, how is the Libertarian Party and the John Birch similar? We just learned an awful lot about the Libertarian Party. Tiffany, you're a rule follower. I know this. So I can see you up there thinking of a question that would,
I got you. I got you. So I was looking in the comments, and Rhonda Miller had a really great question for you, John. And she says, John, you've been exposing what's happening to farmers too. Can you elaborate on that?
So we've been working also not only on the election integrity in Indiana, we also have a problem that's going on across the nation, but we have a carbon capture pipeline that's coming to Indiana. They're trying to push it through. They started in 2018. They put into the 2018 law eminent domain, which is strange because the government has a private contract. The Indiana government has a private contract with a private company, and they're going to use eminent domain in order to take away the property of others to give it to a private company. Sounds like theft to me, but I'm no expert in that area. So we've been exposing that because we have many things going on that we have to expose. So war on farmers, no farms, no food, election integrity, save our children. We've got to expose that and get meaningful legislation in order to stop those things.
So what candidates? I mean, do you guys support candidates as well? I mean, I know you have you said a cheat sheet or what do you call it? What do you call that? That you would put out
legislative scorecard.
Scorecard, yes, that's it. Yeah, I was really paying attention earlier. I'm glad of that. So, who's your top dog, or who you really pushing for coming up in these elections? I mean, obviously we have some local stuff coming up, and we're a year away from all the the bigger elections shaking out. But who are you pushing? Who you like?
So we don't do any endorsements for candidates. We're a nonprofit, so we can't get involved in electioneering. We have our resolutions that we wrote back in the 1970s, so people can look at those and look at the candidates, use them as ways to be able to ask candidates questions. What do they believe on that? But we don't come out for or against the candidate.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, some groups do, some groups don't. And that's that's a good policy sometimes, because if they win, that's great. If they lose, then the other guy that wins hates you. So you got to be careful with some of that stuff on endorsing and this and that. So, Jordan, anybody got another question? So I see we have a comment here in the
so I have a question.
Yeah.
So,
good.
I know that you don't support, you don't speak out about candidates, but in terms of Indiana in the future, what would the JBS like to see?
I think we need to bring us back to the Constitution of Indiana. I think we also need to utilize the 10th Amendment. We need to educate our legislators about the power of nullification. It's been used across the United States in many different ways. For instance, our neighbors to the south, Kentucky, a great state senator there, used the 10th Amendment in order to stop federal overreach of them activating the troops, the National Guard troops, on a regular basis that was against the state. And so they filed the bill, used the authority of the 10th Amendment to tell the federal government, when you come to the Commonwealth, your authority stops here, because it's not been enumerated inside the Constitution. So if we were able to educate the electorate, in order to get anything done, if you don't have an educated electorate, it's hard to get wind in the sails at the state capitol. If people aren't pushing for it, if people aren't talking about it, if there's not the buzz going around town inside the state representative's district, the state senator's district, inside the whole state of Indiana, if it's not happening, then it's not going to get wind in the sails, unless it's being unless it's being funded by some dark money from outside of the state, which is another problem that we do have in the state of Indiana. It's also a pastime of mine. I don't. It's not something that the Birch Society does, but a pastime for me personally. I love going into the Secretary of State's website and seeing the campaign finance donations of people and watching how many millions of dollars coming from organizations that we would not align with, that we would not agree with, places that have ill on their mind for the state of Indiana, and they are funding our state legislators.
Oh yeah, if you want some interesting reading, that is an interesting one. When I ran for the House, I was surprised how many people were interested in things in District 97 that had nothing to do with District 97. I mean, it was a lot of different areas where money was coming in. I'm like, what the what? You've mentioned a couple times educating voters. That's an interesting thing. I think my opinion is that I think a lot of people are just. It's just above their head, glazes their eyes. They're too busy making ends meet, their job, their whatever. I don't know what to make sense of it. How do you get people excited to be educated voters? I mean, that's the $100 question here.
Well, how do you educate? I see in the comments, Rhonda says Stand for Children is another after Adam's a comment, Hoosiers for Quality Education, after my comment about the campaign finance. Both of them pointing out, and I'm segueing to your question, John. How do you get people involved? Well, if they don't know that this problem is even out there, if we have I make diagrams in order to educate. It's a passion of mine. My pastor hat in me. I want to educate people. I want to take people and to be able to take a complex Bible verse, break it down so that people can understand it. It was a great English preacher from Great Britain, Charles Haddon Spurgeon, who said that we're supposed to, as preachers, put the cookies on the bottom shelf so everybody can eat them. That's what we need to do. We need to be able to take stuff that is complex. It's tough looking at some of these things in order to be able to understand the language of a bill, to understand how the bill process. But to take it and they purposely, they being the swamp of the government, they go and take it and make it so complex that it's easy to gloss over. They have trained the people that it's not their responsibility to be involved. And so it's breaking that training. And you have to be able to break it down for them so then they can understand it. It requires hours in order to be able to do this. Many hours of phone calls. I'm on the phone with my chapter leaders across my area, hours on end, training them, training section leaders, training the members, and answering the questions. My wife's like, wow, I didn't know that there would be so many questions. I said, honey, people haven't been involved. I was up in northern Indiana at a big truckers convoy event. Speaker, two people before me said that he was looking forward to the day that he would not have to be involved in government again. I got up and I took the microphone. I said, the reason why we're in the situation that we are is because we've not been involved in the government. What does being involved in the government mean? It might not mean that somebody from Fountain County, Indiana drives all the way to Indianapolis, but it could mean that they take a few hours in order to attend the county commission meeting, in order to attend the library board meeting, in order to attend the city council meeting. All of those are government. We have to be involved in government.
Yep. Well, if you go up to Hamilton County Library Board and cause a ruckus up there, Tiffany will escort you out because there is no back talk out there. So, yeah, and that's how we do get involved. And we can get involved as easy as being a precinct committeeman. I'm sorry, Tiffany. Just because you weren't here last week, I'm picking on you. I'm sorry.
We actually had an almost pretty civil library board meeting last week. We only had one person who had to leave early.
Had to be escorted away. Oh yes. And that's, I mean, some of this stuff, it gets so emotional. Everybody gets hot and bothered. I think sometimes they forget what the heck they're fighting about. I don't like that person. I want to get them.
But it's hard, John, going back to your point, both Johns, it's hard to get people passionate about local politics. And we live in such a reactive world that people often wait until it's far too late to get involved, and it's something emotional that happens. And, where are the people who, just kind of keep their pulse on what's going on? I think that that's not very sexy or attractive. I think you almost have to probably have, like, I don't know, like Kim Kardashian run for city council out in LA for, for young people to get involved in politics and understand. But people just don't care until it's too late. And local politics, that's the stuff that touches you first and touches you hardest and touches you the longest.
Well, that's actually the, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead. So sorry.
So that's you speak exactly to the motto, the goal of the UN. They say they think globally, but they act locally. That is what we must understand, is that's why we need out of the UN. We've got it. They are actually they are hiring people across the United States right now to go to city councils, to go to library boards, and go to county commissions to talk up their nonsense. They want to talk about quality education. Well, their term of quality education is hypersexualization. I've got the videos, the UNESCO videos, the educational arm of the UN. These are pornographic videos. They're encouraging people to watch porn. They're encouraging people to masturbate on a regular basis, to watch porn and masturbate. It is insane what the UN is pushing under this guise of quality education. It's at the local level.
Yeah, and I think that all this is sort of intertwined in the trafficking and the porn and all that. There's a lot of money involved in that, and when there's a lot of money, that means there's a lot of customers, and that means there's a lot of people involved. So this is going to be a difficult task at hand. One of the things that I'd like to talk about is let's see, what was it? Sort of. Jordan, somebody got a question?
I got a question. So with the UN, I think it's a double-edged sword, particularly when we entered into the UN, of course, with the Russians being in there too. We're counting the Russians on every front. Let's be clear, particularly going back in its histories between the 50s and 60s. We have to counter the Russians at every point that we can, including world influence. So with American imperialism, we can't have American imperialism on one hand when it comes to capitalism, but when it comes to our homes and our personal lives, when we're away from the everyday politics, we believe in isolism. We can't have both. So if we're going to still be as active as we are in the world politically and influence different world's governments, we cannot get mad that other world governments are going to influence the citizens. Where we could make a change is making sure that we have safeguards in place to protect our children and to stop these things. I mean, no one was saying these things back in 2007 to 2011. I mean, when the sexualization really started to happen in movies with the clothings, Abercrombie and Fitch, Hollister, and things of that nature, while it was upscale, they were targeting upper middle class children. Then you'll see the lower income kids were getting the clothes that were considered handy-dams, and then everyone was wearing this until it became a normal fashion. So I guess for me, it really comes down to a question of, is there still a fear with JBS about anti-communist rhetoric that could be played against the American people into pornography, into these things? Or is it's just one of those issues as Americans, being a free nation, we're always going to have to deal with? Or is there some other alternative result you guys can deliver on?
So the problem that we face is way back before even 2007. In 1954, SICA, Sexuality Information Education Council of the U.S., was formed, a nonprofit organization who's trying to bring about social change, and they believe that they can bring about social change via the usage of pornography through sex ed. And we exposed that at the John Birch Society through a book called Sex Education Problems in 1969. It was written by Gary Allen. So this problem has been up front in those that are getting the material. And that's why we're called conspiracy theorists at the JBS, because sometimes we're ahead of our time. It was in May of 2020. We had an article called "Mandatory Vaccines and Digital IDs," or vaccine mandates. Excuse me, vaccine mandates and digital IDs. And I held it up, and I was speaking at a event in Spokane, Washington, conservative Republican event, and I held it up and I spoke about how they're going to be requiring vaccines coming up here very shortly for this COVID crisis, pandemic, if you will, that was happening. And the next person came out and took the article from me, threw it on the ground, stomped on it, used an expletive, and called it conspiratorial blank. And they said, "We are Republicans. We will never allow this to happen." I ask you now, will you believe us now? We know what's happening. We are investigating what is happening. We've never had to retract an article. We've had misspellings. We've pluralized words that were singular. We've singularized words that should have been plural. But the truth is still the same. So is this something that we're going to have to fight? Well, yes, we're going to have to fight it at a even more fevered pitch. They are, John, you brought up about sex trafficking. $100 billion is being spent inside of the U.S. on sex inside of the U.S. Sex trafficking is a huge problem. Well, where are they grooming our children? Inside of our publicly funded educational institutions we call schools. We've stepped away from actually teaching. We just, in July of last year, we just lowered the academic standards in the state of Indiana by 25%. Pence brought in to us Common Core, then he changed the name of it to the Indiana State Standards. It wasn't anything different. It's just another name for Common Core standards. And then that's brought in social emotional learning. That is a Marxist teaching. That's where they have the comprehensive sex ed. That's where they have the CRT. That's where they have in the Covington, Indiana community schools. They had first graders playing a game called Kill Time, not killing time, as in we're sitting there fiddle farting around with our time in order to waste it. The question was for first graders. The question was, who of your class are you going to kill if you were on a desert island? Can I ask you this question? Why are we talking to first graders about this? But it was Covington, Indiana that had Terry Badger III that committed suicide because he was being bullied in schools. Can I tell you that social emotional learning is killing kids inside of the state of Indiana? And we better stop it. If we don't do it now, the blood's going to be on our hands.
Wow, this has been going on since the 90s. There was a book called Educating for a New World Order. I think the author is B.K. Eekman that I read when I was a teenager. I mean, before I had kids. I think I was 18 when it came out. And it alerted me to exactly what you just said. They weren't calling it social emotional learning, but it took me back to the 80s when I was a freshman in high school, and they started this outcome-based learning, which is what they called it back then. Mm-hmm. And of course, the outcome was nothing good, but that's not what they told you. So the scenario as a freshman, I'm in my English class and we're divided up into groups, and it's the boat. So you got 13 people on the boat, but there are only 12 people can travel safely. And so each of us was given a role. One's a teacher, one's a social worker, one's a pastor, one's a firefighter, policeman, and each of you have to go around and advocate for why you are important to society, and you should be one of the 12 who don't get tossed overboard. So I tried to say, well, wait a second, are the waters shark infested? There's 24 hours in a day. Can't we each, go out of the boat for an hour at a time? And tread water or hold on to the side. I mean, there's certainly ways to do this other than voting to kill somebody. And of course, I failed.
Class.
You would.
I bet, Lucy, you were enjoying having class. I was challenged every day. You probably had to sit out a bunch of lunches and recess and everything else, didn't you?
So full disclosure,
I
did not.
Thinking about your boat, and I'm thinking about like somebody holding on.
Yeah. I'm thinking about what kind of fish we could catch. I'm just saying.
I didn't, John. To speak to what you said about me as a high schooler, I didn't get to graduate in May. with the kids that I went to high school with. I had to graduate with the summer school kids in August
Hey,
because
I'm not going to say anything because I was a horrible high school. I had to sit out one of my years in college track because I had my core classes were below some average or something. So I was asked to leave. I didn't graduate from high school,
no,
but
mine was a crazy situation. And what was cool is in August I got to give the response of the class, and speaking in front of those, all of those people and doing that for the graduating summer school class was awesome. And then just a couple weeks later, I got to perform in the Pacers pageant that was Miss Indianapolis Teen, and I won that. And I do believe that giving the response of the class kind of prepared me for that. But long story short, so at the time, I was such a devout little Mormon girl, and here I am, the senior in high school, and my boyfriend at the time was a senior in college, and he would pick me up during my French class. Now, I was in French 13 and 14 because I was fluent, and I did end up getting a French degree, by the way, from IUPUI. Yeah, oui, je parle français. Anyway, so my French teacher, since I'm president of the French club, I'm in French 13 and 14. It was actually counting as one of my English credits. So I would leave, once a week for an hour to go to IUPUI and take a religion class, which I now could like totally tear down, based on the fact that the Mormons don't know what they're talking about. But when administration found out about it, they said, well, that English credit no longer counts. And so I had to take an English class over the summer.
Wow.
Yeah.
English.
Because that
was my
I left
second
school,
language. Gibberish was my first.
You were dating a senior in college when you were a senior in high school. I got lost there.
No, I was dating a senior in college when I was a senior in high school.
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's precious coming from somebody who dates Bigfoot. That's just really that's pretty bad, Lucy, when you're getting that. So, just saying. But,
well, it's all good for your parents, when it's a Mormon boy. And you know what? We're Facebook friends today. He's a wonderful person. He didn't quite, his wife only gave him 6 children, and I gave my husband 10. So, maybe she didn't get as brainwashed as I did, but he's a really good guy.
With 40% less children than he could have had.
Yeah,
yes, exactly.
So,
he wouldn't have been a Mormon if he was still married to me. It wouldn't have gone that far. He even did the Mormon thing and went on a mission. And
2 years on the bike type of deal. That would have been the bike ride would have been fun.
No, he was awesome. He got to go to Finland.
Finland.
Yeah.
Yes,
but he was.
Is there a plethora of Mormons in Finland, or are they just trying to recruit?
It's funny because when I was 16, I got to go on a couple of dates with a Frenchman that happened to be Mormon. We met at a
man or a French teen.
How does somebody in France get dealing with a Mormon? That's incredible.
He was Mormon. He was over here visiting friends, and we met at the local Mormon house. But he wouldn't have been
Wait, so you guys had your own dating bars? Like,
is that like a house or something?
Jordan, the Mormon culture is so. Let me. Okay, I'm sorry to take over, John, but you're gonna love this, John. You're gonna love this.
Well, this is entertaining.
If you are a Mormon and you're female, your job, and this, my mom wanted me to go to BYU because she's from Salt Lake. So your job as a Mormon woman is to go to BYU and find somebody that went to BYU for 2 years and then left for 2 years to go on their mission and then came back and finished their 2 years. So they'll be a couple of years older than you. And you're supposed to marry this guy that's a return missionary, right? So the whole reason that you send your Mormon daughter to Rick's College in Idaho or to BYU in Salt Lake is to get her married off. So if you fail to do that,
married up. I mean, hopefully in the.
Oh, you know what, Mormon, they don't even care. And I will tell you, the spouse, and it's just like any other, cultish religion. The spousal abuse is pretty bad. So, so let me just tell you let me just spill all the tea. So when you're Mormon and you get married in the temple for time and all eternity. Now, the dirty secret is you're actually doing Masonic handshakes, tokens and penalties. Like if you spill the secrets of the temple, you'd agree to like literally, or have your spilled out. It's the exact same things that the Masons say, because Joseph Smith became a Mason. Oh yeah. Yes. You do right over there in Sunblessed, honey. There are these people that have made vows, Masonic vows. Your Mormon neighbors have made Masonic vows that if they spill the secrets of the temple, that they will have their guts spilled out upon the earth. I kid you not. It is crazy.
Wait, what is that called? The Japanese have that. It's like an honor.
Harry
Yeah,
Carr, yeah.
that's what they have now.
Harry.
Okay, listen, we got to get out of the weeds.
Yeah.
Our viewers here
Let's
are
do a
like,
Mormon
and
show
John's
so I can
sitting there.
spill
He's
all the
like,
tea.
he's nodding off.
I'm afraid we're not supposed to hear the tea. You know, it's like I can tell you, but if I tell you, I have to kill you. I mean, like,
oh, yeah, magic underwear, the whole 9 yards.
No, but I
we'll
will
do a
tell
whole
you,
show on Mormon.
my favorite young woman, and I don't know, John, how long you've been around, but Sister Beverly Rifleman. So Beverly Rifleman was my women's leader, and of course, this was 35 years ago when I was a young Mormon girl. She was my women's leader at the Mormon Church, and she was a John Bircher. So I've known about the John Birch Society and had a positive impression of it since I was a teenager.
oh, what the circle!
Mormon
Yay!
Yeah, I brought it back full circle. Like there was actually a point to my rant.
I see that. That thing went all the
You
way
got there
out
somehow.
and around. Out and
Trauma
around.
dumping.
It was 3 time zones and all that. So I'm gonna.
I
first
will
of all,
offer my pastoral counseling for Lucy. I will do that 10 minutes free of charge.
Hey, that would be awesome.
We say hail.
Can we just
Lucy's
argue
here.
about it? Can we just argue? That's all I like to do.
Yeah, that's well, and this you feel left out because you haven't been able to give our guests a bunch of garbage tonight, which is refreshing in some ways.
John
but I
is
do like to
clearly
see you
an
try to
awesome
make them
person.
squirm.
Like the only thing that I would have to give him, any grief about is the same thing that I give my friends who are Christian pastors grief about, which is talking about the Enuma Elish and the Emerald Tablets and Elil, and you guys probably don't even know all this, so just go start watching Billy Carson videos, Billy Carson and Ancient Technologies on YouTube, and figure some stuff out and find out that there was a Trinity, there was a virgin birth with mythological there's
tons of different
tens of
stuff.
Thousands of years before Christianity.
There's a lot of different things, but you know what? They said there's a lot of them, but there's only one way. So one thing before we go, first of all, I got to do this for our Channel 40 show because I usually forget to do this, which is thanking our guests for coming on and thanking the panel for such great questions tonight. And John, since, the John Birch Society is known for some conspiracy theory stuff. So, but I don't know if that's really fair. I don't think that's fair that that label is put on there, because I think a lot of the stuff you're talking about very much is still relevant. And, and I think that was a way that I think that's a CIA technique, is to call them conspiracy theorists. And then that's just like, it's calling somebody racist and all that, just call them a name, label them something and put them on the back shelf. So want to thank you for coming on, John. And we're going to do the conspiracy theory. And since your society has really good background in that, we're going to expect a really good conspiracy from you. And, we're going to have fun with that. So thanks for coming on. And we've learned some things tonight about things I probably didn't know if I wanted to learn about tonight, but, definitely don't want to, talk about some of the Mormon. I feel sorry for some of the ladies in the Mormon deal there. So, but anyway, so you're not on the hot seat anymore, John. But you will be in the conspiracy because you're not a politician, and I don't even give the option to the people on there. You got to be in the conspiracy theory. So let's, hey, who do we lose? Tiffany. Tiffany's gone, but she'll be back for the conspiracy maybe. So here we go. Get your tinfoil hats, and we'll see you on the other side.
Hey, y'all, it's time for the conspiracy theory, so you better get your tinfoil hat out, and let's see what's going on this week.
Okay. Hey, look, I actually got the people back right. You're not required to have a tinfoil hat, John. But conspiracies you can have. I don't know where Tiffany's a politician. She's running for council, so she didn't want to. And plus, Jordan, your hat, it just keeps getting better. It's Flash Gordon. I didn't know we had Flash Gordon on the show tonight, but anyway, so we're gonna start with Lucy. Oh, Tiffany's back. We thought, Tiffany, you were going to be, since you're a politician and you didn't want to be caught up in this conspiracy, but you're already on the library board. So that's
why would I miss this conversation with all the other politicians? Come on now. There's three other politicians right in front of me.
Well, we're gonna start with our all-star conspirafact person tonight, Lucy, so she can pave the way here. And wait, George got a little smirk on his face, like he's got something decent tonight. But and of course, the John Birch conspiracy theory Schrock over here, he better have something too. So go ahead, Lucy, fire it up.
Well, John, I always have conspirafacts, and I suspect that you probably have conspirafacts as well. There is no theory here. There's only a matter of time between what I declare and observe is actually played out and revealed in the media. So this is something serious that I want to talk with people about. This is absolutely happening right now. You should sit up and take notice, and that is CBDCs, central bank digital currency. So the crypto has been vilified recently over the last few years, and I won't even go into that, but it's been vilified in order for you to create a certain narrative around the idea that you should not have your money in crypto. And of course, the exact opposite is the truth. So where does the CBDCs come in? People are not aware that very shortly, starting July 1st, there will be a phase in of central bank digital currencies. So you will be going to a US dollar denominated crypto created by the Federal Reserve and the US government, probably actually just the Federal Reserve because, they're not federal and they're not part of the government. If you have cash, if you have money in the bank that you can get to right now, I would exhort you, beg you, recommend, do a tap dance for you. Go to the bank and get your money out. Not the money you need to pay your bills with, obviously, but go get your money and buy yourself some silver coins, junk silver, numismatic coins, whatever it is you can get. Buy yourself some silver ingos. You are about to have your money baited and switched right out of your hands. Now, this happened in Russia in 1993. So people went to bed with a certain amount of money in their bank account and they woke up to a new ruble, and every 10 rubles that you used to have was now one new ruble. That was the way that Russia reset inflation. So you are in danger of this happening to you in the US. Now, I've got 10 kids, so I don't have any money, so I'm completely fine. And you're a pastor,
Nothing to
John.
lose.
So I don't have to worry about the burden of having, excess money that I need to go take out of the bank and put into silver coins. But as a very, very serious thing, because of Bitcoin, and I'm not a fan of Bitcoin, I'm going to say, because Bitcoin is a blockchain that you can look all the way into the past and all the way into the future. You can see every transaction. It is a public ledger. It is not a privacy coin. Anything you do with Bitcoin can be tracked. People can see how much money you have in Bitcoin. People don't know this. The privacy coins are Monero. The one that I like called Pirate Chain, because the symbol is RRARRR. Yes. So Ethereum, for contracts, DERO, DERO is the contract-based crypto that does smart contracts, but also has privacy built in. So for those of you who are paying attention, there's a real cool guy by the name of Jeff Berwick, BERWICK. He has dollarvigilante.com. I am a subscriber to his newsletter. I think it's some great stuff. He's got a lot of stuff out there. So just in all seriousness, this is something that has been flying under the radar. A lot of people have not been paying attention. The Fed already has their equivalent called Pay Now, which is their PayPal knockoff. Fed Pay Now. And so I just don't want the viewers, I don't want our friends in the community to wake up, on July 2nd and find out that they had, $100,000 in old US dollars and it's being replaced with 10,000 in CBDC. That is a real and present danger. The only way that you can subvert a government, and maybe John can even touch on this, the only way to subvert a government and the theft is to have a hard asset that is portable and concealable, and gold and silver are it. So I'll go ahead and shut up, and I'm even going to mute my mic. But this is happening. Yeah, this is happening right now, and you need to know about it.
I heard something was happening in July, so that would
July
make
1st
sense.
is in 5 days. 4 days.
Oh dear.
Yeah, have you thought about
and
that?
then one of our producers here,
Yes.
Adam, said that they passed statutory language excluding CBDCs from our definition of money. So at least here in
A lot
Indiana,
of states have done that, and thank you for pointing that out, Adam. I think 12 states have done that so far, and here is why they did that. The World Economic Forum has said you will own nothing and you'll be happy. BlackRock has been buying up commercial properties on the dollar as inflation is killing people and they're losing their homes. Those homes are not being sold to other homeowners. They're being sold, to places like BlackRock and Vanguard and other places that are getting those single family homes. So they're not going out in the market. And the only way that they're going to be available to you is as a renter. So you will own nothing.
and those
and you will
prices
be
are going
happy.
up.
They
Yes.
really are. Anytime you have big corporations come in and get a monopoly on the market, it gives them the opportunity to, jack up the prices. So anyway, the point behind that is, and I'm so glad Adam mentioned that, is that the next play in order to get rid of people being able to own private property would have been to make the CBDCs the only form of legal tender in the country. And then based on the social credit score, you wouldn't even be able to accumulate, use, or own the CBDCs, because you'll be persona non grata. And how would you pay your property taxes? So how easy would it be for them to come in and take these homes that people have worked their whole life, they've paid them off, they've been responsible and debt free. Of course, they can't stop renting their property from the government through the theft of property taxes. But if the only way to pay those property taxes were through CBDCs, man, it would be so easy to steal that. So
Yeah, it
thankfully,
was.
there's some Hoosier legislators that saw that scam.
Oh, my latest update on our tax appeal is we have somebody from the city that's working this out, or encouraged us to drop our appeal. And they said we need to send them comps for this one's just for the Art Center, which is a nonprofit. And so they still want to put a value on it for later. So we send them some comps that were there's not really anything like this. Nobody's stupid enough to build something like this in Mars Hill. So there's not much there. So they encouraged us to drop our appeal. And I said, pound sand, we're not doing it. So they continued it once. So we just got a notice today, continue it again. And basically I told Lisa, I said, ask her to show her work. How did she come up with this number? So, I think we got to keep challenging our government and challenging them beating them at their own ruls.
I have the answer for you, John.
What's that?
What was the valuation on the Art Center?
I don't know. It just was too much actually, we're supposed to be all nonprofit. Being the honest person we were renting out like one back corner of that. And so we declare that as taxable because it's not, but we found out later, since that helps fund the Art Center and now it's a church. So we are totally nonprofit. So we're trying to get our property tax gone because we're totally a nonprofit. And this is, like I said, from last year. They haven't even gotten to my house yet from last year, plus the 2 appeals for this year. So anyway, they are just so overwhelmed and behind and all that. And that's not a conspiracy theory. This is like, wait, let me take my hat off. This is a real thing. So that was it. So I was in the conspiracy fact thing. So anyway, that was just a quick update on that nonsense. But we'll let you know. July 11th, we're finally going to get our day in court or whatever with all this. I mean, so I'm glad you think my peril of my property tax.
No, it wasn't taking off that.
Oh yeah, well, that was because I didn't want it.
We believed you, bro. We believed you.
You believe me anyway? Okay. All right. Well, we're going to give opportunity to our guest, John. If you want to go now, you can go with your conspiracy, and we'll go from there. You got something, John?
Sure. Oh yeah. Well, we've got so much going on. As Lucy talked about, what is the CBDCs? I could go down that path and spend a couple hours on it, or we could go down the path of. You remember in 2020 when they did 15 days to flatten the curve because of that boogie monster out there of COVID. Then what they're looking at doing now is the flattening the curve of our carbon, and so they're going to be bringing shutdowns, carbon shutdowns, green earth shutdowns, restricting people within time limits, 15-minute cities. These are all things that they're talking about. They're bringing about these in the UK, Ireland, that area of the world. Where they're building everything you need will be within 15 minutes of your house. You will not be able to travel. Well, it'll be convenient of how they enforce it, back to the CBDC thing, because when you go and take the credit card, they know where you live and they know where the store is. I'm sorry, your card doesn't work there. It's not everywhere you want to be, as the jingle for one of the major credit cards goes. So you won't be able to use your credit card outside of a specific geographic zone. Coming to a state near you very soon.
Man, that sounds true. This is supposed to be conspiracy, people, not everything true. So Jordan, you got something that's conspiracy?
I got to touch on what he was talking about. I mean, this is This to me seems so revelationist, kind of. I know that's probably not a word, but I would hope that a Republican-controlled majority of legislators across the country wouldn't let something of this nature happen. I mean, we revolt for smaller reasons before. I would hope that we would do something over this. You know, I think it was one of those quotes that, you know, don't go gently in that dark night. I hope that we would go out starking mad if that was the case. But to give
put them up, courage.
Right. Like that's something that I think we all can agree upon on this show. Best of luck. But my conspiracy tonight's going to be more towards Russia tonight. I don't know if anyone's been paying attention to the news for the last. Actually, I don't know if I want to do this or the Ocean Gate. Which one do we want to hear?
Ocean Gate.
All right, we'll do Ocean Gate. Okay. So as you guys know, I have an aviation mechanic. So anything with carbon fiber is awesome. But as you learned with carbon fiber, there is something very important that you should know. When you put it under a lot of pressure the way you do, when one of those strands break, it doesn't just a clean break, it's a shatter. It's a poof, pow, it's gone. And it happens very, very quickly. So this Ocean Gate guy built this contraption that MacGyver would have been impressed with. And come to find out, this guy, as they were going down, apparently, they were hearing large cracks and bangs coming out of the vehicle. So they already knew as they were heading down there that this thing was already starting to ping and pop. So they eventually were only 1,600 feet off the ocean floor, 1,600 feet off the bow of the ship. And I guess they were on their way back up, not coming back down. And that's when it basically popped like a balloon. And I'll let you do the visualization in your mind. It literally popped like a balloon. And so now the military is doing an excavation on the floor. But here's the conspiracy. They allowed us for about 94 hours to believe that these folks were alive. All right, one. You were heard weird noises that were consistent every 30 minutes on the ocean floor, alien moon base or alien spacecraft, whatever you want to do. What was going on for 94 hours that you guys had to joke around with us for? I think it was aliens. I'll blame it on that. They got too close to an alien craft. They popped it like a zit, and we spent 94 days trying to figure out what to do.
that would made our skin product queen blush a little bit there. That's a good one. That's a good one. And you know, we have carbon fiber bikes and rims and stuff. And you are right. I've destroyed some carbon fiber stuff. It's not pretty when it breaks.
They're strong until it's not.
Yeah, it's how much. It's where they say how much will that lift? As much as it can. So, Tiffany, what do you got for us? You got any Bigfoot hygiene? Any we popping submarines like zips over here? What do you got?
So I don't have a conspiracy theory, and but I do respect everything that everyone says. And I always tell people whenever I repeat something that has been said on the show, I always tell people I am not a conspiracy theorist. And then I go on to repeat something that I've heard on the show. So I know, right? But I'm not a conspiracy theorist. So Jordan, this has to do with like Ocean Gate. So a friend of mine posted in like a group chat, and it was on Facebook, that while everybody else in the world was focused on this craft that imploded in the ocean because of pressure and not being designed to be used for multiple uses, that we missed that the FDA, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that the FDA approved lab-grown meat, and the CDC released a statement about the COVID vaccine and heart disease, and Hunter Biden was pretty much like went free.
Let go.
All that while we were all focused on the Titanic, which has been on the bottom of the ocean for about 100 years.
Yes. Well, when you got to go back to 1911 or whenever that was.
It only is believable if you put 2 billionaires on board. It's only believable it happened if there's 2 billionaires on board.
Was there really 2 billionaires on board that thing?
Yeah, a tycoon from the UK and then some other dude. Yeah, there was wealthy people on board. It's $250,000 per seat.
Dang!
You go on a tin can.
It's a large.
They couldn't even get a decent submarine. It's it is sort of it's sad. I mean, I know we joke around a little bit, but it is. Yeah, but it's like, and had they done this before? Was this an ongoing thing?
So they've done 13 dives in this ship. The problem is that the last 3 or 4 dives that they started noticing different sounds on it, and they had these sensors that were in the skin of the wrapped lining that were supposed to let them know any type of minuscule sound that they hear in the shell. Well, the problem is because he bought the stuff off the shelf, the system that was supposed to detect the failure to give him some type of leadway was basically only designed to let him know right when it was happening. So when they were on their way back up, they may have found that there was an issue, but because they had shoddy communication systems, they always lost communications. So they were not even in communications with the ship when they were on the way up. And when it popped, no one knew what was going on. The last few dives, they lost communications for 5 hours. They were fine. So, but in this case, not so much.
I imagine that that's just something. All right. So, I got one. Mine's not very good. You guys were so much better than what I have here. There was my thing.
Even me.
Yeah, I'm struggling to come up with guests on this show, and all that. John has been booked for like a month, and he's. I like to be ahead of things, and we're and then I have to edit everything else. So then the conspiracy here, but mine's pretty boring. It's about Mount Rushmore. There's apparently there's. I know. See, so there is government secrets hidden behind the Mount Rushmore, behind the Abraham Lincoln and all those guys, the George Washington. Who's on there? We got Roosevelt, Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and
Coolidge.
Ronald Reagan. Coolidge.
Grant?
Is Grant on there? I don't know. Now I got to look it up while we're talking here. I can't.
Isn't it Jefferson? I guess Jefferson.
Jefferson? We'll go with that. That sounds right. Jefferson, Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and
Coolidge. That's just a nice name. Coolidge.
How Jefferson? We don't even remember on our monuments anymore.
All right, this is Teddy Roosevelt. I think somebody said Teddy Roosevelt. So
Jefferson, Lincoln,
Roosevelt.
Coolidge.
Yeah, that's an interesting story if you want to hear about it. I mean, but they got all these secrets behind Mount Rushmore. I don't know where. It's maybe like up in the mountain with.
So when was Rushmore done, and what kind of secrets did we have at that time?
I'm gonna guess 1924. I just making that up. Maybe later. I think it was maybe later.
Like recipes. I mean, like what?
That is. You really need to read up. That's a very interesting story. The guy used dynamite and different things to. I mean, you don't just like do that in a weekend. That thing is that's something else. I want to go see it somewhere. Where is it? In Montana or something like that?
South Dakota, Rapid City, South Dakota.
Yeah, there you go.
You don't even know who's on it. How are we supposed to know?
You didn't hear what I said earlier?
So anyway, that's a conspiracy that really that's not Teddy Roosevelt.
Indianapolis. That's
really somebody else. It's not him. It's somebody. It's like those are likenesses of those people. So
Jennifer says it's a secret room. Jennifer, what's in the room? There's a secret room.
Yeah, see? Hey, that's already catching on. I start a conspiracy, and 3 minutes later, there's people already talking about it. So hey, it's not
in there. Geraldo needs to go and tell us what's in there.
I think Jimmy Hoffa's buried in there, isn't he? I'm pretty sure that's where it is. He's buried in. So anyway, well, I think we salvaged that one up a little bit. So I don't feel as bad about it. So all right, well, we've made it through another episode. This is episode 126.
It's a secret.
Can you believe we've made it this long? It's great. It's fun times. John, thanks for coming on, being a great sport. I've learned about the John Birch Society. Lucy's probably going to join it as soon as we get off the air here. And you can find that. Go look them up, JBS online, and get involved if you want to be an activist. I think they're known for being activists.
Why can't they just be community minded or focused? Activist is a big word.
I know. Maybe it's like I really don't know what it means. It's probably hidden behind Mount Rushmore. This
John, do you consider yourself an activist?
Do I consider myself to be activist? I am very active in promoting constitutionality. So if that's your definition of an activist, but I think the word activist has been hijacked in several situations.
Yeah. It's
You're
a
an
lot of
influencer. You're a Constitution influencer.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
influencer. That's right. That's right.
Political influencer.
All right, everybody. Hey, stick around backstage, John, after the show here, and we'll have a chit chat with you. Thank you again for being on the show. Let me get to the right ending. This is the ending with Jordan. I got an ending with Jordan, with no Lucy. So we got all sorts of endings for this show. I got to make sure I push the right one, because if you noticed, I've left out the countdown on the start of the show. Maybe I should end the show with a countdown.
No, it's too long.
No.
Nobody has a countdown that starts with 100. Come on now.
I know. Well, we got a little slack on the
That's
countdown, so it's all good. All right. Well, we'll see you next week. We got an exciting show next week. You got to tune in. Lance Hammer, great guest, all that. So, hey, Jordan, don't take your tinfoil hat off. That is not your time. So, okay. Yeah, there you go. Golly. You guys are killing me. So I'm
Gotta
at the
get
edit.
some Joe Burrow glasses.
Yeah, put them on there. Cool thing. So, all right. We'll see y'all next week. Same time, same channel. Everybody, peace out. Bye.
Yeah.